what do you think then? Are you in support of this, though? Sort of potentially docking benefits to incentivise people to come to work or get more work?
No, and I agree with your previous guest. It doesn't work. I mean, my constituents who come to me, who are on universal credit and who are working, people want to feed their families, put a roof over their heads, and they do the best that they can. And a lot of people who will be affected and told that they have to work more simply can't. And then someone's going to have to judge whether they can or they can't. And we've seen that the box ticking exercises that people use with universal credit just don't work. But the basic thing is, and it actually comes back to that Martin Luther King quote that you used. It's all very well to tell people to pull themselves up by their bootstrings, but they have to have bootstrings. And what the government is doing here is taking away those bootstrings and making it much more difficult.
But Christine, there's a huge amount of availability of work at the moment in the market. I mean, we've got the highest level of available employment since ever. So why would these people not be able to get more jobs? Or more work is what people might be asking.
Well, that would assume that these jobs are where they live, that they're qualified for them, and that they're able to do them. That they're not a carer who has to do hours of caring which doesn't suit the employer, that they have small children, that they need to get childcare. It's taking a big stick to people rather than saying, well, how do we make it easier for you to work? That's what's wrong with this. It's not actually appreciating the problem. And like everything else that we saw in this so-called mini budget, which has got nothing mini about it, everything else just shows how completely out of touch this government is. They seem to have no concept of what universal credit actually is, how it works. You heard your previous guest talking about all the evidence being that sanctions not only don't work, they're counterproductive. The tax burden, they talk about this £50 billion that it's going to cost these tax cuts. Where are they finding that money from? Why is that money not being invested in helping people heat their homes and feed their children this winter? They're completely out of touch with the problems that ordinary people in this country are facing.
Mm-hmm. Well, I'm going to bring Gary back into this because, Gary, what should the government be doing then instead of that then? Because obviously we don't want people to be literally spending all their time on benefits, which is what's happening. A lot of people, the most amount of people getting the benefits of those actually working. So what should the government be doing?
We need to be looking at measures that will get people into work and keep people in work. Job retention is actually crucial in these circumstances. We need to be looking at not just childcare arrangements, but adult care arrangements. More people are outside of the job market because they're caring for an elderly or disabled relative than they are because they're caring for children. And that's something I think often gets overlooked. We often think of the care as being a childcare issue. It's as much an adult care issue. I think we need to be looking at what kind of training is available and what kind of support people need to not only find a job, keep a job. I've been doing some recruitment recently, and the number of times we see people applying for jobs that they're not qualified for simply because the job centre has told them you have to apply for 10 jobs a week. Yeah. And that's a waste of everybody's time.
But Christine, final word to you on this then. What was your sort of thoughts then, in general, to the Chancellor's budget? I thought I might ask you, seeing as I've got you on. What did you think of that? This part of it, your view, and then your overall thoughts on it?
I was pretty taken aback. I'm tempted to go as far as horrified by what I heard from the Chancellor, because it did, as I've said, show just how completely out of touch this government appears to be with the problems that ordinary people are facing. They have had all summer to come up with something, and what they do is they wait until it's almost too late in terms of the help for companies with their energy bills, until it's too late for many companies, and then they come up with something which doesn't go far enough. Then we get this so-called mini budget on the last day before a recess, so there's little scrutiny, and it's got the biggest tax cuts for 50 years, and the whole thing in its entirety is a massive gamble with this country's future. Massive gamble. It involves borrowing. It could be unsustainable. It's simply, it's inept. And it's as I say, it's a huge risk, and it's a risk we might all pay for.
Well, I hear you, Christine. It is a big risk, but could we carry on doing the same thing? We're getting the same result. Christine Jardine, it's such a pleasure to talk to you.